Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Have you ever wondered about the strength of a Mora knife? I have. So in today's video we're going to take this Mora Companion, which I have had for a long time, and put it through some overall strength tests. Now, I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen. I don't know if the knife will survive or not, but this is what we're going to try. So I have a number of things we're going to go through, and I'm kind of going to develop this as we go, depending on what damage or how strong this knife is throughout each one of these tests. And in this case, it's not about what the knife will do to the wood, but what the wood will do to the knife. So with that said, let's get into some testing. I'm not going to say necessarily destruction testing, but some good hard use with this Mora Companion. And if you'd like to see if this survives, do me a favor. Stay tuned. So before I started any testing, I wanted to make sure that this knife was good and sharp, just to give it a nice edge. So I took it to my leather strop and really got this thing tuned up. And you can see here, it is at this point nice and sharp. And just to be clear, this is the carbon version. So this is the carbon version of the Mora Companion. And it's treated me overall pretty well. I've had this for a number of years now, and I kind of hate to think I'm going to be thumping on this thing. But you know what? I mean, they're cheap knives, and that's part of the, I would say, like, allure to really thumping on it. Like, how durable and how strong really is this? I am very curious to see how much abuse I can put this through, and to see if it will survive these tests. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I have this old log in my yard, and I want to get rid of this bark. And I mean, not that this is going to be all that difficult for this in terms of a job, but I actually need to get the bark cleaned off of here anyway. So this is going to be the start to a test we come back on later. So I'm just going to kind of use the knife right now to do some work here and clean off all this garbage. And in a little bit, we'll come back and we're going to use this for a little bit of some harder testing. Now my plan is to continue to use this log essentially as a bench, and you'll see that there are all kinds of like big heavy sort of knots hanging off of here, basically old branches that were sticking out of this log, and I'm going to use the knife here to basically chop these off completely. Now unfortunately I've already taken some of these off camera. I thought I had my framing right and I didn't, but I'm using this sort of cut off baseball bat, so this in and of itself is going to be a little tough on the knife, and then just kind of, you know, pounding down through all these and knocking them off will be really a good test for the durability of this blade. So while we're at it, I figure we might as well do some batoning tasks. So I have some logs here that are certainly in the size range for which you could easily baton with this Mora Companion, but then a few that are going to push the limits with some big gnarly knots in it. And so let's kind of see what we can do here. So I'm going to start with some of the easier tasks for it. So just this log here should not be a problem at all. You get plenty of span here. So we're going to kind of start with this. And that did it with no problem. Now, the handle did ride right down along the wood, so you can see at this point that there is an indentation that has formed from the log rubbing against the plastic of the handle, but that's basically to be expected. But you never know, something like that could come out in the mix by the end of this, so just something worth noting. Now you see while I'm doing this, I am striking directly on the tip of the knife with basically a cut-off baseball bat. So I mean, this is a nice, strong, and really dense piece of wood that I'm using right on the tip of this blade to baton through here. So it is an excellent test to show the overall strength of the tip of this knife. And you'll see, at times, you really got to get a little bit tough with it. And this had no problem at all. So now for the true test. I know most of my knives are going to struggle with this. Can I make it down and through this knot? Now, I think for me to actually be successful, I'm not going to be able to go directly down through the knot in its first pass. So I'm going to split this sideways the first time to start this, and then I will go through the knot. So my first baton will basically be to kind of get this a little thinner so I can get on this thing. Woof. I don't even know if that is gonna even work. Well, that's why we're here trying this. My only choice is to hammer on the handle. I don't have really much of that tip left. I mean, that is literally hammering directly on that tip. So if you take a quick look at that, the knife is actually bent in the wood, so it has like a curve to it. So if you look at the handle position, the knife is straight until about here, and then it curves. So overall, you can see that I am heavily stressing this blade, so I'm going to keep trying to pound it down through here. And like I said, I don't have much option other than to hammer on this handle and then the very tip of the knife. So this is going to be an excellent test for the overall strength and durability of this knife. Ow, a lot of shock in the handle there. Wow. I mean, I'm pretty certain I'm hitting that full force. I am trying. I think I'm hitting the tip of that. Wow. I mean, this is a really, really brutal test for this. Oh, man. I don't think it's going to go in this pass. The knife is literally completely curled over. So it must be catching the grain of the wood and just really twisting it. I'm not certain I'm going to be able to power this through it. Just my own strength and the geometry of the knife and its ability to split through the wood. I mean, I can keep wailing on it, but I want to do a lot more testing, so I don't think I'm ready to totally kill this knife just yet. So let's, oh man, see if I can get it back out of here, and we'll take another crack at it. But I mean, you'll see there, this thing is completely twisted inside of that log. And that, my friends, is a bummer. Well, I've done it now. So this knife by no means is a loss, but this is a good example of why a full tang knife is going to be that much stronger than a hidden tang or rat tang knife. So here you'll see that just by wrapping on that, I have loosened up the blade from the handle. Now I'm going to try to get this put back in, and if I have to, we'll reconvene this test at a later time, but I'm going to try to get that either back into place or epoxy it, just to make sure that I can continue with this test, because it's a different failure than what I was expecting, but that is very interesting to see. So at this point, I think I kind of need to do a little bit of work here to get this put back so we can resume with testing. So at this point, I'm going to try to seat that back in and continue to resume testing without anything further. But if this continues to be a problem, we're going to have to do something about it. So again, I just pressed that back into the handle, and let's continue to go from there. Now the good thing, apart from the handle, is that the blade came back to perfectly straight. So even though it had a pretty substantial curve while it was in the wood, no problem at all. Came right back to straight. So I'm going to continue to try to process this down so I can get down through this knot. But obviously at this point I see there's a little weakness with the tang. But we'll continue to try to work around that. Now, I don't know, maybe just take a little less bite here and whittle my way down through here versus taking a big split in half. Kind of getting there. Gonna nip some of this off here. So here's another piece of this, is prying. I mean, this is certainly taking all the blows I can give it. So the steel is not a problem in terms of its overall strength. I mean, if that steel was going to have a problem, this was going to do it. I am trying to absolutely smash through here. So my only real concern right now has been the handle. Now, as I start to pull and pry on this, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm most of the way down through, but I do have a little work to go, and I'm just curious if this is going to fail on me. But let's give it a try. Ooh, it went. So a ton of flex in the knife, which I felt kind of towards the handle, if that makes any sense. I mean, I feel like even though the knife was flexing, it had some possibilities of having trouble at the handle, but it pulled that piece of wood right off of here, so that's a good sign. So as I continue to process this down with the hopes that I'm going to try to get down through this knot, you'll see this wood already has some cracks in it. So what if I was to try, say, to cross baton through the top of this and just like nip off this whole top part? And that's pretty thick there. That's a solid chore for any knife, really, never mind this little Mora. But let's see if I can get this oriented and get some good bites on this thing, and really try to cross baton off this whole top chunk. This is when you just smash. Oh, 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 oh. Smashing doesn't work. Oh, damn. So, unfortunately for me, I didn't even get near what I wanted to test with this. Damn. I really wanted to get into some tip testing, so prying and stabbing tasks. But unfortunately, that rat tang failed on me. So obviously that was abusive, but it showed. And I was wondering what it would take and how far you'd have to go, and that certainly showed me. This took a lot. I mean, if you look at what I was doing to kind of pound down through the, through that log and had it all twisted up and stuff, that's a bummer. So I got to decide whether or not I'm going to get another one of these and then do just like another round of testing with it. But let's just call that round one. So round one, I mean, that showed you some of the abuse that the Mora Companion could take. But obviously at this point, we have suffered a catastrophic failure. Now, I wonder if that happened in the field, whether or not you'd be able to kind of get this thing semi put back together to do some work. I mean, it wouldn't be ideal, but you could certainly continue to use this for carving and food tasks at this point. You would not be able to stab very effectively. Unfortunately, that's going to be a liability for you. But, I guess in terms of the general ability to use this, the idea that while you're cutting, you're pushing, so the forces are going into the handle, is going to work in your benefit. So, if you had to do something where you needed to continue to use this to carve and, make yourself some feather sticks and stuff like that, or prepare at least a little bit of wood for a fire, and then using it for food prep and stuff like that, you could absolutely certainly still do. Well, so alright guys, there you have it, round 1 of Mora knife strength testing. Now, I have a few questions that do come to mind. Obviously, in general, what I was doing would be considered abusive, so that is above and beyond, in some ways, what you should be doing with a knife like this. However, there are some aspects of what I was doing that people may have to do in a wilderness situation, and if that's the case, at least you know kind of how far I was able to take it, and the certain characteristics about this knife. Like, for example, it wasn't the fact that the steel on the tip broke. Now, even though it's not perfectly sharp, it is a nice, fine, and serviceable edge. And then ultimately, the handle and where it broke in the tang is really where the weak point was. So, again, I acknowledge that it was a bit abusive. And the other thing I wonder is, did it break because of how dense my baton was and the fact that I'm essentially whaling it with a baseball bat? So, if I was using a different type of baton that was a little less hard and a little more forgiving, would it have still failed? So I still have plenty of questions that I'm looking to answer. I want to know what happens when I do sort of some stabbing and prying tasks. I'd like to see how that performed. I'd like to get maybe into a little further of bend testing to see how this steel will react if you really bend it. I mean, I got some good bends on it today, but certainly not as far as I could have if I really pushed it. So let's just see. I may consider this round 1 for now and then pick up another one of these. I will again get the exact same blade and carbon steel to continue the testing. So just to remind you guys, this was the Mora Companion in the carbon steel version. So I do have a stainless one kicking around, but that would not be an apples to apples test. So if I am going to continue with this, I would obviously get myself the carbon version. So alright guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.